Hey guys, Pair bringing you this 10.1 Frost DK quick guide. Today I have the goal of giving you pretty much everything you need to know about Frost DK 10.1 in roughly 10 minutes. This will include discussion on talents, gear, the rotation, stats and consumables. This is going to be quite light touch, so nothing too in-depth. There will be more guides, having more discussion to cover those aspects. To start off, let's talk about talents. So for raiding, what are we looking at? In Temple 1, there are two primary viable builds. We have the Breath of Synagosa one, and we have Obliteration. This is probably the first point as a Frost DK where Obliteration is truly competitive. The Aberrus raid does not lend itself nicely to Breath of Synagosa. A lot of bosses have annoying kind of gaps, heavy movement, that kind of thing, which means that Breath of Synagosa just doesn't do that well. And even on pure single target, Obliteration is truly competitive. So if you're a big fan of Obliteration, right, you've been waiting for so long, now it's finally the time we can play it, then it's going to be really competitive. Let's talk about some choices here in the talents. So starting out with Breath of Synagosa, what can you change in talent tree depending on the fight, scenario, whatever, right? I think the primary choice comes between Enduring Strength and Frostwhelp's Aid. Whenever you have any kind of AoE, the value of Frostwhelp's Aid just goes up quite significantly, and it becomes like the AoE version of Enduring Strength in general. Other than that, the talents are quite fixed. You can see we are picking up Frostwing's Fury. This is due to the new 4 set, which synergizes very well with that talent. You can move that over to Bone Grinder if you don't want to run Frostwing's Fury, but generally Frostwing's Fury is really nice because it scales very well with ads and so on. For Obliteration, we don't have as much choice. Again, it's about Frostwing's Fury and that talent point. So what you can do, there's essentially 3 talents here, which you can kind of move that point around to. So you got Frostwing's Fury, you got Inexorable Assault, and you got Icebreaker, right? All those 3 are quite close together. I think technically now, Icebreaker is the best. So if you want to go full single target, pick up Icebreaker. Frostwing's Fury obviously gains a ton of value whenever you got any kind of ad, because, it's going to deal a huge chunk of damage. So on anything that is a pure single target, that's probably going to be the default. But do know that, you can swap up to Enex if you want some more passive gameplay, and Icebreaker is generally a bit higher single target. Now, let's talk about the class tree, because I think there's some interesting choices here. So you can see my default version here does pick up Death's Echo and Blood Draw there at the bottom. That's kind of like the quality of life, nice pick choice. In progression, you probably want to sacrifice that point in Death's Echo to go into Will of the Necropolis. Unlike Unholy, Frost doesn't use Death Decay in pure single target. Whenever there's AoE, sure, you will use it, but in pure single target, you won't use it, which means that we can easily pick up Will of the Necropolis, don't pick up Death's Echo, and gain a ton of survivability. I would say that if you are fighting Magmarax, if you are fighting Rashok, both very heavy damage intake bosses, do go for the kind of defensive build, Will of the Necropolis, right? The other choices comes from AMZ and Assimilation. So AMZ and Assimilation are kind of default picks for Breath of Synagosa because you can funnel runic power into that ability. For Obliteration though, there's much more room of picking other stuff. Like you could go for Acclimation, for instance. You can go into, improve Death Strike if you want that, little extra healing. There's just tons of options here for Obliteration. It's all about, look at the fight, look about, do I benefit from any of these utilities? Pick it. For instance, on Skarn, you have Death's Reach can be useful, that kind of vibe. Anyway, more choice there. It's primarily, do you pick up Death's Echo, do you pick up Will of Necropolis? That depends on, are you doing a fight where you need to have lots of defensives? Will of Necropolis is just generally a nice pick, so that's it. For Mythic Plus, right? We essentially have a single build, and that's going to be the 200 Obliteration build. It just deals more damage overall. Breath needs this, you know, insane tank that pulls around you, allows you to have insane uptime on breath. Won't happen in 99% of scenarios. So what you're going for is this 200 Obliteration build, and it's pretty set in stone. In this build, we have absolute 0, the point in that you can move around. You could put that into Enduring Strength, a bit more single target. You can put that in Chill Streak. People never kind of do it, so kind of whatever. But that's the point. You can move around and kind of try out new things. In the class tree, we now want to pick up Death's Echo due to getting double Death and Decay. It's quite nice to have like a secondary Death and Decay window. Other than that, you know, picking that Will of Necropolis can also be a good idea. There are quite a lot of mechanics in Mythic Plus that can kind of one-shot you, and Will of Necropolis can save you from that. But in this scenario, we have to sacrifice DPS to pick it up. So in that scenario, you would do just 1 point in Holy Bond, double Will of Necropolis, and then go pick up Insidious Shield to get that kind of. But that's like a 2-3% DPS loss, so something to really consider if you really want to do it. And to be honest, like Death's Echo, you could probably just ignore that because you would just get 1 Death and Decay each pillar window anyway, so that's also something to contemplate. Other than that, you can see in tree, it's like a full defensive tree. We do Permafrost, we have improved Death Strike, right? Blinding Sleet for the AoE stun. It's quite a standard one, and there's not that much to move around in it. Alright, great. Enough about talents, let's talk about gear. So what should your gear strategy be like for Frost DK? What should you look out for? What should you be upgrading? That kind of thing. So let's talk about trinkets to start with. Generally, trinkets are well balanced for Frost DK. There's like nothing that's insanely strong. Nothing that's like, oh, this is something you have to have. Alright? We want, in a raiding environment, pretty much have 2 passive trinkets. That's how I work out. So we have a couple options there. We have the Ominous Chromatic Essence. It's kind of like the best passive one. We have Nefarian's Call to Suffering. That's the class trinket. We have stuff like Screaming Black Dragon Scale. We have the, what's that called? The Vial? No, the Anvil trinket. Also solid, passive, single target one. We have Beacon to the Beyond. Those are kind of like your set of passive trinkets that work well. For Obliteration, you could also run a Vial of Animated Blood. The 1.5 minute cooldown lends itself nicely to your Oblit windows, which are generally going to be 4 to 5 seconds in between each other. As I said, just sim yourself. There's lots of options. Generally, what's an eye level upgrade is going to be better for you, but double passive is the general play for raid. Sorry. For Mythic Plus, it's a bit different. We really want Vial Animated Blood here. It's really great synergy, both with the fact that our Pillar Frost window is going to be roughly 4 to 5 seconds, as I said, and Frosting's Fury is going to sit at 1.5 minutes. So you can, every 1.5 minutes, you go Vial, you have Frosting's Fury, you go Obliteration window, and it gives you really nice burst windows there. Great. So other gear, right? What should we be looking out for? As to an Obliteration, there's another item we want to really get, and that's the Ashkunda from the raid. It drops from Nefarian. Is that Nefarian? The penultimate boss in the raid, right? That weapon is just really strong. At 441, it's roughly equivalent to a 447 eye level weapon, so that kind of gives you the power level vibe. When it comes to crafting embellishment, so the best gear for Frost DK will actually use a Lariat and a Shadow Flame Patch. Now this is a bit tricky because Lariat only really gets good once you stacked up like full on sockets, right? It scales with the number of sockets you have, a number of gems you have in those sockets, which means that it's not going to be best until it's kind of like really decked out on all your gear. Up until that point, what will be best is double Shadow Flame Patch. So the general idea will be that craft double Shadow Flame Patch, right? And then, you know, after a couple of weeks, when you've gathered up all the sockets you need, then you swap over to Lariat. Okay, so even though Lariat is Biz, go double Shadow Flame Patch until that point. For Mythic Plus, it's a bit different priority. Shadow Flame Patch doesn't do that well in AoE, so what you want are the wrists that give you versatility, and then the Lariat as well. And until you get the Lariat, you might go for the Haste Legs, or you could also go for the blue silken lining. That's kind of like that's my approach. Right, other notable crafter gear. So the rings are pretty good. Like you get a guaranteed socket, which is great, and you can choose your stats exactly as you want them, which means that rings are actually a solid piece. Weapon as well, something to consider. It takes double the amount of sparks. If you two-hander, if one-hander is just a single spark and it's really good value, so you probably would go for that quite quickly. But for two-hander, you need double sparks, but you get a guaranteed 447, so it is likely to be a really strong upgrade. Just do your sims, look at, okay, what's my DPS upgrade based on number of sparks I spend, and then look at what gives me the most value for the spark. Also, if you are limited by number of crests, also consider upgrade number of DPS per crest. Generally, right, you need the same number of crests to upgrade like a pair of wrists as a weapon. The weapon is obviously going to give you more DPS, so just consider that when you do it. Now, let's talk about the rotation. So, what's the DK rotation? Let's just recap quickly. You use your runes on Obliterate. That generates runic power, which you spend on Frost Strike. It also gives you proc of Rime, which you spend on Howling Blast. And then every 20 seconds you hit Remorseless Winter. That's the core rotation. Simple and easy. How does that play around with cooldowns? So Breath of Sengosa, when you press that, it's going to continuously drain your runic power. And the whole game is about, you know, staying on top of it so you don't drop below 16 where breath will stop. To do that, you need to very intelligently choose when to use your cooldowns that generate resources. We have Empower Rune Weapon, we have Horn of Winter, those are the primary ones. Empower Rune Weapon, generally use one a bit early to get big burst, and you save the next one for when you really need it. Horn of Winter, use the first one relatively early so you can actually get the value of the second one, don't hold on for that too long. We can also soak mechanics with AMS and AMZ with the simulation now. That's a really important aspect. That's something you're going to want to actively manage. So whenever there's magic damage out there, use AMS to soak that up and generate runic power. Same thing with AMZ and simulation. The priority here during breath is to never press anything else other than Obliterate, Howling Blast, and Remorseless Winter. Never Frost Strike, that's going to just ruin your DPS. The priority is, you know, just use a normal Obliterate when you get Killer Machine, you know, or just Obliterate generally. Howling Blast when you get Rime, Remorseless Winter and cooldown. The only thing is when you start dropping low on runic power, so if you're like 40 or whatever, just make sure you always prioritize Obliterate if you can hit that spell, just so that you can get back on top of it. Right, Obliteration, it's slightly different. When you press that cooldown, you know, you have Glacial Advance, Frost Strike, and Howling Blast generating procs of Killer Machine, and then Obliterate consuming them. The whole point there is just, you know, press either Frost Strike, Glacial Advance, or Howling Blast to generate a proc, and then consume it, and then generate one, consume it, so back and so on, right? That's the kind of vibe. The choice here becomes in AoE, you use Glacial Advance instead of Frost Strike. That's the same thing as in the core rotation. And then the single target, just Frost Strike as your runic power spender. Generally prioritize pressing Howling Blast when you can get a Rime proc, but if you're about to drop like Unleash Frenzy stacks, use your runic power spender. The only difference here in AoE is also that Deafening K comes into play, makes your Blitz Cleave, so use that as a second GCD in your pillar window. Openers, got them up here, nice and easy. Look very similar. Start out with Abomination Limb. For Breath, just stack up runic power and then go into Breath window. For Frost, just, you know, hit pillar, hit your cooldowns, and just go insta-ham. That's the vibe. There will be more rotation videos, don't worry. This is just a very simple, quick overview. Now, you might think that the new 4 set changes your rotation significantly. The only real change is in single target with Frosting's Fury. You always use that after pillar now, regardless of build. That's it. Now, stats. Breath of Goza absolutely loves critical strike. Alright? If you look at the BIS stats for Breath of Goza, it has like 6,000 crit. It's insane how good it is for it. Just to cover why is that? So crit does scale really nicely with both the breath duration and just your general damage. So crit increases the number of crit autos you get, which increases the number of killing machines, which through murderous efficiency increases the number of resources you generate. So it actually gives you more resources to have more crit, which extends your breath Silicosa window, which is why crit is a good stat. It also works well with your 4 set. 4 set increases crit damage into your Pillar Frost window, so getting more crits in that is going to be very helpful. Cool. Other than crit, you want to get haste and mastery, and then kind of as little verse as possible. But always sim yourself to make sure you get the optimal stats based on your gear available. For Frost Obliteration, you want 25% haste at least. Go for 26, 27. This is to get the extra GCD in your Pillar Frost window without any haste buffs. And then you want to get roughly similar amounts of Mastery and Crit-ish. And there's, again, quite a low amount of versatility. For consumables, the vial, we want to get the Corrupting Rage, really strong for Frost, especially Breath, which loves the crit. And we're really tanky, so we don't really care about the downside. We want to get Rune of Fallen Crusader on our weapon if we're playing 200 Frost. If you're playing a Breath and Goza, we do Rune of Fallen Crusader and Rune of Hysteria. Otherwise, here's like the list of standard consumables. Just get those and go with it. Great. Hopefully that wasn't too long, dense, easy to understand. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this video. If you have any further questions, you can always join my community Discord. You can ask questions as well. Upvote and downvote. Consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.